I didn't get a chance to tell you because Marie just told me a little bit ago. Marie is not going to be in here today. She ended up going to urgent care this morning because she was like puking and super sick. And she was like, I'm going to ride it out. I'm going to be in PodTox. And then she took some medicine that they gave her and she said she can't even lift her head up. So it's
Wow,
just me and you today. All good because it'll be a lot of story time. So that'll be
that's
easy.
fine.
Real quick, welcome to Pod Talks, everybody. Today we're doing more recovery content. We haven't done really recovery focused content in a little bit, so we're going to focus a little bit on that, and we're going to focus a little bit on like jail time and what that's like, and recovering from all that. So if you want to, man, go ahead. If you want to introduce yourself and kind of talk a little bit about yourself real quick, we can just start there.
My name's Carl Vandenhurt. I'm 50 years old.
Yeah.
Um, Spent a majority of my life in prison. Uh, was a really lost individual, and about 10 years ago, I had I prayed out, and and I basically asked God if He would help me get my life together, change my life. I would do what He wanted me to do,
Okay.
and then my life just started kind of changing because that was a half-hearted prayer. I didn't really believe, you know.
Yep.
And and here today, I'm married. My life's put back together. It's good. It's great. It's better. It's rich. I mean, inside, And Um, I'm out at a work. I do commercial siding.
Oh,
Uh,
heck yeah. Okay.
yeah. So I'm out in Nome, Alaska, like at a work camp right now. Working. You
That's
know,
got to be crazy out there, dude. Because I
yeah,
guess you're probably used to it a little bit, but it's cold, man. I can imagine
yeah,
doing sighting out there. Oh
yeah.
my
It's cold
god.
right now. Like we had like 70-mile-an-hour winds the other day, man, and we couldn't even go to work. It was too windy, because of what we're doing. We're like putting siding on the Kiwanis Care Center, which is a big hospital. So
Okay.
all the material is really big, really, really big and really heavy. And so it's a bitch. I'm 50 years old, so doing it, trying to make a comeback after all these years in prison, man, is crazy, but worth
how,
it.
how long were you in prison?
A lot of people think when I talk that I say that I was in prison for 30 years straight.
Sure.
I was in prison for little over 30 years of my life, but with long sentences. But I had I did 10 years and then I was out for 3 weeks and went back for another 12 years and was out for a couple of days and got violated and went back for 10 years, things like that. So, I mean, I've literally been in prison my whole life, but I've had a couple breaks.
Sure.
So but like week breaks, not not years worth of time out on the street before I went back. So
What was the problem though? What kept you going back?
when I was young, my real father was an alcoholic. Used to beat up, my mom, do all these things. Well, he ultimately ended up getting into it with the police, and um all I know is he lost his life due
Okay.
to the way he was acting while he was drunk and stuff. Well, so my mom went through this abusive relationship, and then she about when I was 2 years old, she met my stepfather, and then my all of my problems in my life started with me and my stepfather's relationship.
Okay.
Now that I'm an older guy, now I understand that he was just trying to get me to be a responsible um, young adult. That he was trying to teach me the best way he knew how. But when I was a kid, that didn't come off like that. My mom was really religious. My stepdad didn't believe in God, things like that. So my mom would take me to these church functions, and all the families would be, you know, um, real huggy, lovey dory with their family members. The dads would hug the kids, things like that. Well, My stepfather didn't do anything like that. He was
Right.
always the discipliner. He was always the, so we just had problems my whole life. And I wasn't abused, things like that,
Sure.
but I was mentally, and and I did take my beatings when I did something wrong. But so by the time I was like in the 8th grade, he uh he had me thoroughly thinking I was just a pussy. Excuse my language, but
No, you're
just
good.
so when I got in the 8th grade, I was like really shy, really, just awkward, things like that. And then so there was always the bully. There's always the local bully in school, right?
Yep.
Well, I was one of the ones that always kept my head low and was hoping that he wouldn't pick on me, right? Well, then he did. And here's where my problems in my life changes right here. So he picks on me. I fight back. Um, as we're fighting, somebody was like, the hall monitor's coming. Hall monitor's coming. So we had to break up the fight, and
Sure.
then in the school that I went to up here, across the street is this store called Red Apple, and that's where everybody fights at. So when the hall monitor cleared out and walked away, everybody was like, go to Red Apple, go to Red Apple.
Yep.
So I started heading to Red Apple, and this kid is like, oh, but I can't go over there. My mom, all of a sudden he just, for whatever reason, I didn't win the fight, but all of a sudden he didn't want to go across the street and fight anymore. Right. So I come back to school the next day, and I'm like the most popular kid in the school. Like I stood up to this bully. He didn't want to fight me back. Everybody was like, ooh, so, and that did me bad, man, because all I ever wanted at home was to feel loved and accepted.
And it
And
was.
then all of a sudden, I'm getting all this love and this accolades and my, admiration from fighting. Like that's all I got to do to be loved. So
Yep.
that's all I got to do. It's just so it just turned up, man. I'm fighting, trying to fight. Everybody wants to fight. Um, all the girls all of a sudden
Liked you
love me.
and
You know what I
yeah.
mean? So, and it was like the more and more I would do wrong, the more and more I'd do wrong, the more accolades I'd get, right? And I started falling into the wrong crowd of people.
I want to talk about the stepfather thing for just a little bit because I am a stepdad. My stepson is 15 years old right now, and for the past, I don't know, probably 4 years, me and him have kind of been at odds because I'm trying to do I want you to be respectful. I want you to be responsible. I want you to take care of yourself. I want you to strive for something. And it never comes across the right way for him. And he is one of those kids. I don't want to say anything bad, but he has a hard time getting motivated. He likes to sleep. He likes to eat. He keeps getting on these kicks where it's like, okay, I'm going to take care of myself, and then I'm not. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to for a week, and then I don't for 5 months, and it causes this big rift. What was going on in your life? What was he doing to you that was kind of not connecting?
I wasn't doing my part. He didn't know
Okay.
how to show love because in his family, you didn't hug on men. You didn't tell men you loved them, things like that. He was a military guy.
Oh,
In
okay.
his family, he was shot in Vietnam. He was a Vietnam vet, and his dad was a World War II uh, soldier. You know what I'm saying? And so in their household, you worked hard. You
Mm-hmm.
said yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. The guys didn't hug the fathers. It just you didn't do that back then, I guess. So it was a learned behavior. But the thing is like he was just strict. Like if he told me to go rake the leaves,
Mm-hmm.
it was time to go rake the leaves. You know what I mean? If it was, and I didn't have no leeway there. It was like it wasn't no. I was the kid and he was the adult. And rightfully though, after I grow up, right, like a couple years ago, when I was in prison, I hadn't talked to my family for 20 years, man. And we finally made up.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
and he was sitting in a visit, man, and he said, and it's like, man, he just he said, um, Carl, he said, I would have never kind of made up with them if they would have been like, yeah, Carl, you were this, you were that, you were this. And like I was the only one that made mistakes. And he's such an introvert, man. You can't even like he don't talk to nobody unless if you said hi to him, he'd say hi back. But
And
he don't
that's
talk to nobody. Like it's
yep.
just how he is, man. And as a kid, that threw me back. And then he was always just so stern. So I never thought he cared for me, things like that. And he would never, like, I'd say, night, dad. They call me at home, they call me Los. So they like Carlos. So they
Yep.
say Los. So every night I would say, night, dad. And he would be like, I'd say, night, dad, love you. And he'd say, night, Los.
No, I
And he
love
put
you,
his hand out.
Dad. Yep.
And that was it, right? So when I was in this visit, he said, Carl, he said, I want to let you know I made a lot of mistakes, you know? And he said, but I just thought I was doing the right thing, you know? Sorry if I cry, man.
No, you're good,
But
man.
he said, but he said, you know, I asked my dad one time in my life if he loved me. And he said, do you have a roof over your head? And he said, do you have clothes? Are you fed? And he said, well, that doesn't show you that I love you. Words never will.
Right. Right.
And I was just like, I screwed up my whole life behind that.
Right. And it's one of the things that I'm trying to figure out because that is not me and my stepson. We aren't like crazy, crazy close, but I will tell him, hey, I love you. You're doing good. I'll try and talk to him when I can. And there's hit points where it's just like every single time he speaks, it has to be something just coming at me, or he just decides, oh, I'm not going to school. Or I do tell him, hey, you need to go do the dishes. And it's got to the point where there is no leeway in that because he'll just put it off as long as possible. So I feel like over time I've gotten more and more strict, but at the same time it's kind of finally got him to the point like he dropped out of school and now he's going for his GED because he got back into it. He wants to do welding and stuff like that. So now he's striving for something, and we hope it's going to work out. We aren't sure because he is very big on quitting things, but it's like I don't know what was the right way to do things and what was the wrong way to do things, because in the end it's kind of starting to work out, but I still feel like I make a ton of mistakes and I beat myself up over it all the time. Where he comes from and like where you come from, my dad was the same way. My dad he wasn't the type to say I love you or give hugs or whatever. I could probably count on one hand the amount of times me and my dad hugged. So it's like I don't know, it's weird, man. It's hard.
I don't know if you're gonna let him see this, but I would definitely tell him like it's all out of love, man. You're trying to get him to be an adult and to have a life. Like you're trying to save his life. That there's no room for laziness in this life. The lazy people fall behind, man. The early bird gets the worm. You know what I mean?
What changed besides the fighting? Because I know he's had problems with bullying and everything because he is a little bit bigger of a kid. Besides the fighting, was it just you finally grew up and you understood, or did you start to see some of the reasons he was doing some of the stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I fully understand why he's done it now, but it took me all the way till I was, like I said, 10 years ago when I prayed that prayer in my life and I started really buckling down, really was trying to make a change and strive for better and greatness in my life, that I started getting out from all the excuses
Right.
that I that I made that held me down.
Right.
I could have had a great life, man. I was an athlete. Um, I just, I just, I could do anything, man. And my stubbornness and me thinking I knew and being a know-it-all and then thinking that my way was the way and that's it.
It wasted a lot of time.
It wasted my whole life.
You
And
you keep saying that too. Do you still feel like it's your whole life? Like you don't have
no, like
go ahead.
I feel like I got a lot of life left, but I'm saying like the
Sure.
years that I never graduated and went to high school. I never went to all the dances. I never had my 21-year-old bash out. You know, I never had my you know, I was always on the run, in
Yep.
prison, stuck on drugs, ashamed, in a daze, like just like you know, my behavior led me down a wrong road. And when I was 19, um, I was out drinking and driving with my friend, and not drinking and driving. I went to a party, and I was fully off into my chip on my shoulder and all that stuff, and I had bought a car. I had a job though, you know.
Sure.
I was in juvenile hall from 14 to almost 19 years old, and and got out, and for a brief moment, it's one of those brief moments I was out in my life. I got a job, and that whole summer I was working, and I saved up enough money to get a car.
Yeah.
And my boss let me off Friday and let me go down, let me leave early and paid me early so I could take my money down to this car lot and buy a car. So I went down to the car lot and bought a car, and it was an agreement that I had to come and work on Saturday.
Sure.
So I went down, bought the car. I went home and I went to sleep. And a little while later, my best friend called me. It was Friday night, and he was like, "Hey man, I met these girls. You know, he's 18, I'm 19. So I met these girls, you know, they're like 27, 28, you know, so we think we're doing it, right? So we
Yep.
go right before I leave the house. I had this cat named Keone. It was a Hawaiian guy, was an older dude, man, like 10 years older than me, but he always looked out for me. So I was sleeping on his couch trying to get my life together, right? And and right before I left the car, or left right before I left the house, he said, don't be drinking and driving in that car. Don't go out and hurt anybody, man. And I said, and I still remember to this day, I said, man, I ain't never been in a wreck in my life. And he was like, because I thought I was this, because that's what I went to juvenile hall for, stealing cars. So, you know, I can drive. So I'm thinking
Sure.
in my head, like, yeah. Well, so he said, you better knock on wood. And I was laying on the living room floor because my friend just called me and I had passed out and dozed off. So I had just got done talking to him, and he and my friend heard me talking to him. And I was like, yeah, I got a car, bro, and I'll come. So right when I hung up the phone, that's when he said, hey, man, Carl, don't be going out getting drinking, man. And so I said, I ain't never been in a car accident in my life, all like I'm the shit. And
Yep.
I rolled over, and he said, you better knock on wood. And I rolled over and I knocked on the stairwell banister in the house. Sure enough, went to a party with these girls. An argument happened a little while later between him and her. She kicked us out of the house, and we made two turns, man, coming down the street. And I had the right of way, so it wasn't my fault. But two kids, a 15 and a 16-year-old kid in a stolen car, ran a red light, man. And I ran into him and killed everybody but me. And that's what happened. My best friend died, and I was 19 years old, man. So I was 19 years old, so I didn't understand life then. I didn't understand the real cost of life yet,
Right.
of your actions. I didn't understand what My parents was always trying to tell me I paid the ultimate price. I lost my friend. I drug him out the street and I watched him die on the street. He ripped his main artery in half in his chest when we hit this dashboard. I cut my nose in half, and you can't really see it now, but my whole nose was cut in half, and
Torn up, yeah.
it was 30 years ago. But that set the trajectory of my life off, and I just couldn't forgive myself.
You're sitting there, I'm guess, waiting on the cops, the ambulance, all that. What was going through your head? Had it even hit you that everybody was gone, your friend was gone, or were you still in a daze because everything just happened?
I don't even know what happened. I just came to standing in the middle of the street, like 380 feet down the street. And I came to it. I was looking at my leg and I couldn't breathe, right? And I was looking at my leg and it had this big hole in my kneecap, like right above my kneecap and my muscle. There was a big chunk of meat missing right there. So I was standing there and I was trying to get my breath back and I was looking at that and I was confused, right? Because it was like a hole and it wasn't bleeding. And I was sitting there looking, and then all of a sudden I just heard like a death cry, and I'm literally facing the other way down the street, so I don't know anything happened. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then when I heard that noise, I turned around, and when I turned around, it looked like a 747 jet plane hit the ground. That's how much debris and shit was all over the place. And I was like, and then I seen my friend in my car, and my whole front of my car was smashed in, and it was up against this light pole, and he was like laying in the front seat, and he was a big kid, man. He was like 6'4", 280-pound, 18-year-old. So I ran back over there, and I was like, "Come on, man!" And I started trying to pull him, and every time I would pull him, he would like, like. But his main artery was severed in his chest, So when I was pulling his arm,
It was all coming out.
yeah, and then all these people were running down the street, and they were like, I was like, "Help me get my friend out of the car," because I thought the car was going to blow up.
Right.
I was like, "Help me get my friend out of the car." So we pull him out, and we lay him on the ground, and I start going, "Come on, bro, we got to go. Come on, man." Because, we met each other in juvenile hall, you know what I mean? We were like besties, man, and that's what we did when we got in trouble. We ran, and I couldn't run from this.
Yeah.
And I was like, come on, bro, we gotta go. The cops are coming. Come on, man. And he was just like, and he started, shaking and just, and then the paramedics got there, and they pulled me on the other side of the car, and I was sitting on the ground, and I was like, "Hey, man." And all these people were staring at me, and I was sitting on the curb, like this, like, and I was like, "Somebody got a cigarette, man?" And they were like, "I don't think you want to smoke, dude." And I was like, "Give me a effing smoke," you know what I mean? And
Right.
so somebody gives me a cigarette, and I light it up, and I start smoking it, and I'm like, and it's like, when you burp soda through your nose.
Yep.
I don't know, my nose is cut in half, so it's like every time I take a drag of it, I'm like, and I'm looking at the cigarette, and it's red, and I'm like, I was confused, I was knocked out on my feet, so I'm just like, I'll keep doing it, and I'm looking at it, and it's red, and I couldn't understand it, and then I was like, "Is my friend dead?" And they were like, "They're working on him, bro," and I was like, "Go effing check, man." And so they went over there, and the dude came back, and he was like, "I don't think he's gonna make it, bro." And then I just remember that somber moment, and I just was like, I'm going to jail for the rest of my fucking life.
See, and I've had a similar experience. I didn't end up hurting anyone, but I was leaving work one day. I had a couple shots. I was on pills and all types of stuff, but I was honestly as good as it gets. I was pretty used to drinking and everything, so I really wasn't that in any way. So I'm heading home. Get on this street, and I'm just heading straight. For some reason, this truck that's kind of coming in the opposite lane, there at the light too, and they decide, oh, I'm gonna turn, and he just peels around as I'm coming through, and he gunned it so fast he literally ripped the front of my car in half whenever he hit me, and I saw it at the last second, braked, and if I wouldn't have braked, that would have been me. Like he would have smashed directly into me, his metal truck, and my plastic car, and instead he took out the whole front end, and I was able to walk off. But the first thought I had in my head was a selfish one. It wasn't, is everybody okay? It wasn't anything. Obviously, it was my fault, but still, first thing I thought was, oh man, I'm gonna get caught because I drank a little bit, and I'm gonna get arrested. It wasn't anything about anybody else. It was just about
Yeah.
me. And I was just, it took a little while, and I figured it out like later on how just stupid and just I didn't know where my head was at that time, and it was all the drugs and everything. So yeah, no, I get it, man. The losing friends is hard. I've had that happen too, and whenever you're involved, that's a whole different thing. So what happened after kind of all this? Obviously the cops show up. Did you end up going to jail right then and there, or was it?
No, I I didn't get charged at the hospital or anything. I got out. I went to my parents' house, my family's house, and was up there. And then they, I don't remember exactly how I ended up finding out I had charges. They charged me with 3 vehicular manslaughters, and I went on the run. That's what I did. I went on the run to Arizona, and I was down there. That's what I did. I thought I was going to get charged. So I ran to Arizona, and then my mom called me and told me the charges they picked me for. And I was like, I didn't run the light.
Yeah,
I
how
didn't
do
run
you
the
deal with
light. They
that?
did. It was a flashing yellow light and a flashing red light. They had the flashing red light and I had the yellow. They pulled in front of me. So I was like, man, I didn't kill my best friend. I didn't do that shit. Reckless. I didn't do that, man. And it really wasn't like, I mean, I was drunk, but I
But
wasn't like,
it still wasn't on
but it's
you.
still, yeah, no, but it's still, I shouldn't have been behind the wheel, but I wasn't like, like they were trying to make me out to be. So I was like, I told my mom, I'm coming back. I'm coming back. I'm gonna fight him on this. I didn't do this, man. So I came back, and while I was in the hospital, a police officer did something that left me forever untrusting and hateful towards the police officers, right? And when I came to in the hospital, this lady cop was standing there named Anita Shell. She was like, hey, she's like, oh my God, sweetie, are you okay? Oh my God. And she was freaking out so bad. I was like, she was like, are you guys gonna do anything about this? What's going? And I'm like, what? And she was like, honey, I go, something's wrong with my face. And she's like, honey, yeah, your nose is cut bad. And I was like, like, oh, yeah. And so I start worrying and all this stuff. And then she's like, and she was acting like she just super cared. And
Right.
then the people, like the doctors came in and she was in there and she was acting like mama bird, And then they were like, yeah, we're waiting on a specialist surgeon to come fly from Fairbanks to come down here and to sew you up. And we think it'll be good. It's a clean cut and you should be able to recover from it. And I was like, oh, okay. And then that only just played right into this lady's role, dude. So she says, a little while later, she comes in with a clipboard and she was like, how you hanging up, sweetie? How you hanging in? And I was like, good. And now by this time, I'm like, she's cool. She's like mama
You're
bird. She's trying to look out for
testing
me,
her. Yeah.
And then she says, you haven't been in here much. She said, but you have to, in order for them to let the specialist work on you, you have to sign permission slips, give them permission since you're over the age of 18 now. And since I knew better, I grew up in juvenile hall, you know?
Right.
So I didn't know no better. Well, up here in Alaska, to get your blood alcohol level, they had to have a warrant back in the day. They couldn't just get it, right?
Right.
So what she did is tricked me into signing these papers that gave the police permission to give me access my medical records. And you know what I mean? It wasn't a permission slip to give the hospital permission to work on me. So that did two things. That was right there, forever left me mad at the police. They're liars, they're scumbags, they do more damage than they do good. And that's how I grew up, right?
Right.
And they lie. They'll lie, cheat, and steal. They'll do the exact same thing you're doing to get a conviction as they will to you know what I'm saying? That's just how I look at it.
And
Not so much no more.
Right. And you couldn't fight that in any way, because even that,
I did. That's what I did try. That's what I did. So when I talked to my mom told me that my friend died. I flew back to Alaska from Arizona,
sure.
and I went and turned myself in. And I was going to stand trial because I didn't just recklessly run somebody over.
Right.
I might have drank and drive, but that's 3 days. You're trying to give me the rest of my life for something somebody else did.
Right.
So I came back and stood my trial because I know that I got a leg to stand on with what that lady did. That's called a motion to suppress the evidence now, because you got my blood alcohol level illegally.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. So, anyways, long story short, I fought that. I fought it. I got it in front of the judge. The judge said, "I think you were coherent and you knew what you were signing."
Your nose was ripped in half, and you were a child. I mean, wow.
So when I'm telling you these stories, they're building you up to where my chip on my shoulder came from, that held me in prison most of my life.
Right.
From POs, from COs, from cops. Like, you don't have a chance. You don't even have a chance to walk onto the porch, let alone come to the door in my life, because of all of these things that my stepdad, person of authority, I felt was misusing his authority and bullying me around.
Sure.
The police lying to me. You know, every authority figure in my life at that time had scarred me one way or another. So that goes along with my guilt, my drug addiction, my need to cause violence on everything that I handle. That's where everything's got to be done at, because nobody understands anything anymore about talking. But as soon as you hurt somebody, they all of a sudden understand what you were talking about, right?
Right.
So, but don't when I'm saying all of this, don't get it twisted. I absolutely today think that that's wrong thinking. So, anyways, so I ran. I was out on bail. I was out because I came back, turned myself in to fight the case. My parents bailed me out, and now I was on third party up at their house, and that means I had to be in their sight, their sound. They had to either hear me or see me 24 hours a day. So after I lost that motion to suppress hearing, I thought it was curtains. I thought they were going to really be able to give me my whole life in prison for it. So I ran. And they ended up catching me a couple years later. And that was the longest span, about a year and 18 months later. That was the longest span of my life that I was out of jail, right there. And I got caught. I went in, but the only thing that changed when I had ran is that they have some kind of special system that maps out car accidents, and they changed my charges, and they dropped off the vehicular manslaughter.
Really?
And gave me the DWI, but they gave me the deal I had to take was a year on the DWI. So, but now I'm already like in this whole different person. I'm on the run. I'm doing everything and everything to take care of myself. I fell into the wrong crowds of people. I'm I'm drinking. I'm doing drugs. I'm all the way off to my rocker now. And
Right.
then I hit prison like that. And when I hit prison, what was bad for me is that I had a chip on my shoulder, and I thought I was tougher than everybody else, and I thought was crazier than everybody else. And even in that, I went to prison and I rose to the top of the food chain in the prison system, and I started a gang. And I went even, like, I don't know if you used to see me. If some of my videos, I used to have my whole face used to be tattooed,
Yep. Yeah.
like, so I'm going through a lot of stuff, to right my wrongs now, man, and to be back to normal, but
What did it feel like once you finally had that acceptance and you did rise kind of to the top? Yeah, I mean, you're in the top of the prison food chain. This is probably one of the first times in your life where you're really accepted by a lot of people. You think you're doing the right thing because you fought for it and you earned it. So what was it like? Did it feel like that was home, or did it still feel like that hostile environment that it really is?
it was my home. I like not I was nothing out here.
Yep.
Nothing. I'm like a little baby out here on the streets, right now, like compared to everybody else, but in there I was everything. I'm a charismatic, confident kind of guy, you know what I'm saying? So that fared me well in prison, like I was always really buff. I was always really buff when I was younger. I could work out like no other. Um, I could tell jokes and snap back, with my comments, really cocky and really funny. So, um, and like I said, and I could fight real well.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So I just, like I said, and I thought, I was really everything in there. That's all. And then I got to a point when you can tell handfuls and handfuls and handfuls of men that they believe in your hype. They put your marks on their body. You know what I
Sure.
mean? They put
Yeah.
they put your shield, your patch, your things on their body, and you got guys that wouldn't listen to their teacher, to their parents, and to the law, but they'll listen to you,
Hmm.
and you
That's
got
just
that
that.
kind of power,
Yeah.
and they'll do whatever you tell them to do.
Yep.
There was a real time where I was really lost. Like I was like, and I was in that moment, and that was in my head. Like I was like the shit and untouchable. To even the police were scared of me. You
Right.
know, like the police in jail. Like, dude, they hate me. They still hate me. They don't think anything that I'm doing is. They don't think anything I'm doing. Just matter of fact, just the other day, my boss's dad was somewhere, and a CO seen my dad, or seen his dad, and said, somehow the company I worked for got brought up, and then he said, "Well, what do you do?" And my boss's dad said, "What do you do?" He says, "I'm a correctional officer," and I've had long talks with my boss's dad about my life and about, because at first everybody was standoffish to me because I still had heavily tattoos and I was from prison, and
Sure.
so he had came into accepting me now, and then so when he heard the dude was a DLC worker, he said, "Oh, do you know Carl Vandenhurt?" And he was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, he works for my son's company." Don't trust him. Don't
Yep.
trust him. He's gonna snap any day. He can't be trusted. All these things, and I'm like, man, what part of your job is that?
Right.
Aren't you supposed to be a part of corrections? And you're supposed to be like, damn, well, good for him. Because if it's good for him, then he ain't out here robbing and stealing and busting up and making our communities unsafe. So by all means, he should be like, cool, man. I hope he stays on that track, man, because that guy
Right.
used to be this. So many other ways you could. There's so many other ways that you could run your opinions and the way you open your mouth, because words kill.
And I was wondering if, because obviously it's still kind of happening, uh, whenever you were in prison too, did you get that like corrupt prison guard type feel? Did you have people in there just beating people for no reason, and were cops just as bad in there as they were outside, or was it kind of
Oh yeah,
different? Yeah.
you can actually go on like I did I did Chad Marks Blood on the Razor Wire.
Mm-hmm.
That was like when I first came out, and I didn't know how I was supposed to do an interview. I didn't know, so that the feel of that guy's show is like he wants to hear the juicy juice of that, and I was like on a kick of like I want to tell you about how God changed my life. So
Right.
I don't think he liked my, because I've reached out to him more and more, but it's just like maybe that's just the way. I don't know, but I talked about it on here. You can look it up. I was my last segregation stint. I was in the hole for 6 years of my life, 3 year stints in segregation. The last one, I was in there for a cop bringing in a knife and stabbing two of my homeboys. And they tried to charge me and three other guys with it. They tried to charge me with saying I ordered the hit. I
Yep.
wasn't even involved in it.
Yeah.
And for the next 3 years of our life, they made it. The other guards took the knife. So I came back in the mod one day from doing my job, and I come back in, and we had this guy we used to call Reno 911. This big, tall, goofy looking cop, and he was just an asshole to everybody, man. And he would just do the most, right? Well, he came in our mod, and I came walking in, and he's sitting back, and what he likes to do, like say the laundry room's open, the closet where all the cleaning materials open, so everybody can do their thing when they got to do it.
Sure.
The salt and peppers in over here, the cop out and some paperwork is over here, so you can grab it. When he comes into work, he grabs all of it, salt and pepper out of the thing, everything. He locks the door, so you have to go and say, "Hey, can you open a laundry room for me? Can you?" And he'll go, "When I got him, when I get there." Things, he's just, he sets you up so that you bite it. Man, F you, dude. And
Yeah.
then lock down, so he could cause a problem, so he could put hands on you,
Yep.
Well, I came in a mod one day, and he had locked the. You can look this up, man. This anybody that's watching, look it up. Kim Spalding in Alaska cop fights for his life, whatever they said. So, anyways, I come walking in a mod, and he's sitting there, and there's a bunch of native guys, and he's yelling at the native guys, telling them to get the F away from this door, the laundry room door. Everybody gets up in the morning and tries to get in to the laundry room to do their shit before, 60,
Everybody
70
else.
other guys get up to
Yep.
do it, right? So they're like, he's sitting back at his desk, and he was like, "You don't tell me how to do my fucking job. I'll get up and I'll open it when I get there. Get the F away from the door." Woo, 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 right? So I'm walking by, and I'm just tired of the way he treats people. So I turned around and I said, "Hey, man, why don't you, or I said, why don't you watch your fucking language?" That's what I said. And he goes, "Why don't you lock down?" And I said, "For what? For your content? Or, you know what I'm saying? You want to run
Right.
your mouth and cuss at everybody like we're in a bar? Like we're and then somebody cusses at you, and then you cause them problems?" So then I said, I go, if I don't lock down, what? He goes, he said, how'd he say it? He said, I'll effing put you down. That's what he
Hmm.
said. And I said, and when he said that, everybody's looking because I was yelling in the mod. So all the homeboys came out, we're looking on the tier.
Yep.
So he said, "I'll effing put you down." So I said, so I started taking off my jacket slowly, and I'm like, "All right." I said, "I think you fucked up, man." You know what I'm saying? I said, "You got me fucked up." And I really slowly built up the pressure, sliding my jacket off while I was talking to him, folded it up, put it on the table, and I just charged him, squared up with him. And like in every case, he just turned into a weenie and
Yep.
pushed himself around the desk in his chair, and he was like, "That hurt, that hurt, that hurt, that hurt." And then I got to a point where I got done chasing him, and I laughed at him, and I said, "That's what I thought. That's what I thought." You know what I'm saying? I said, "You come up in here, yell at everybody all day, disrespect people, and talk all this shit." You know what I mean? And he goes, "If somebody told you to jump, would you say how high?" And I go, "No." I said, "But I don't have a job that says I got to do that, dog. You
Right.
do. You're the one that has to do the job." So, anyways, he was like, "Look, Vandenherk," after a while, after he talks me down, he's like, "Look, Vandenherk," he goes, I can't let the other inmates see me and you get into it and me not do something." So he's like, "Just give me a 3 hour lockdown. No harm, no foul, just to lunch." And I said, "Okay, all right, man." I understood that. So I went in the room,
Yep.
and about 5 minutes later, I hear lockdown, lockdown, and I look out the room, and they're all the goon squads coming, or all the cops are coming to my door, and he's like, "Hey, I got to take you to SEG," and I'm like, "For what? I thought you told me I," and he's like, "Sergeant said." I said, "Well, go get the sergeant." And I said, and then he was like, "Vanderhurt, cuff up," and I said, "Get the f away from my door, dude." You know what I'm saying? You come here, you start problems with everybody, but when they bite on your shit and they don't just let you push them around, you take everything. I said, "So if you're taking everything I got going, you're working today, bro. Go get the goon
Right.
squad." So that's what I made them do. I made them go get the goon squad, get them suited up, get them with the pepper mace and their shock shields and their tasers and whatever else they wanted to use, and I made them work for it. And then after they hit me with about three full cans of pepper spray, and then bomb me out of the room with this
Yep.
this little thing. They get me to the hole. So I'm in the hole now, right? I mean, it was just me. That was just what I. Well, the next day, I guess they were. I just happened. I just got done fishing some coffee into my room under the door, and I just made this cup of coffee. I'm still burning from the pepper spray. I'm walking around in the
Oh
segregation
yeah.
hole with nothing on, just a sheet. And I'm just like, and I look out the window and I see the goon squad going back to where I was. I said, so immediately it goes to my head like all my friends are avenging me, right? So, anyways, but what happened was is he went into the mod that morning and he said, "Yeah, this is my house. You're gonna do what I say, or you're gonna get what your effing buddy got." So, right? So he just threatens the whole mod. Well, there was this little skinny Samoan dude. Like he was like most Samoans are just big people,
Bigger
but
guys. Yeah.
yeah, he was a littler Samoan, right? Little guy. Anyways, his name was Sino, and so he was standing outside his room, just like it, just right outside, just not even all the way outside his door. And when the cop was doing his walk, he my friend Sino was more in the room than he was out of the room, right? And he was just watching the community TV out in the mod. And the cop comes to him and says, "Move." And he looked at him like, I mean, he only has to take one step around him. And he said, "Move." And he was like, "Man, walk around. What are you talking about?" And he was like, "Move." And my friend just bombed on him. And he started fighting. And when they were fighting, everybody was watching the fight. And then they realized that Sino was trying to get away from him. And then they realized that the dude had a buck knife in his hand and he was trying to stab him. You know what I mean? So some of the other partners that weren't in my gang, just people that were in other gangs, they ran down there and tried to get the knife away from the CO. And in the process, one of them got stabbed
Yeah.
punctured his lung, missed his heart, punctured his lung, and he stabbed. That was dust off, and then he stabbed Mike Berg in the back, in the stomach, and cut his thigh in half.
Jesus.
And then so they beat him. They beat this. They finally get it away from the C, or beat the CO up for a while, and then the CO's screaming for the door to get open. But right as he gets out of the door, when they get him out, but the door opened up far enough, he throws the knife in the mud and he says, "I'll kill all of you bitches." And he throws it on the floor. Well, after the goon squad comes in and they put him down, the knife's gone.
Oh
Right?
shit! Of course. Yeah.
The cops took the knife and got rid of it, and then they tried to pass on that Spalding had stabbed everybody with a pen. And it was in the transcripts when he went to the hospital, in one of my friend's transcripts, they were trying to say that the leg was a puncture, and the nurse was like, "That's not a puncture. A pen wouldn't cause that."
No, you can't
And they
rip
were like,
somebody's
"Whoa!"
leg open
Right?
with a big pen.
So anyway, yeah. So anyways, they try to take care of their own, right, by hiding this knife. But that ultimately, in the end, saves us, because Mike Berg, he started fighting the case. Now, technically, I wasn't even part of their case. I had nothing to do with it at all.
Right.
But since I was the leader of a gang and that happened to me the day before and I went to the hole, they lumped me up in it and said I was the one that called the shot on him for what happened to me the day before.
Yep.
And I didn't. You know what I'm saying? And so anyways, needless to say, they shipped us to another joint and they just rode us. Now all the COs, even rookies, think that we put hands and really harmed a CO, and that I was the one that ordered it. So if I tell you they weren't leery of me and afraid of me, rookies, like they thought I could just order people to hit them and shit. And like I said, I had nothing to do with it, but they charged me with 2 new outside crimes, like instead of like write-ups in the jail.
Right.
They gave me new charges for it, and I didn't even do anything. And then they charged them with 3 attempted homicides on the CO, and he's the one that brought the knife. So they made us fight for our life. No lawyer up here. The Alaska Department of Corrections is like a gang. Like literally,
Yeah.
they are the rules don't apply to them, man. So, anyways, no lawyer would pick the case up because they wouldn't fight the DLC officers union up here. They
No,
wouldn't do
it's
it, right?
too much. They got to have cooperation, otherwise they'll get screwed later on.
One of the guys that was involved, Mike Berg, he was the one that got stabbed the most. He got into the law library and he started learning, and he opened a case by himself with another legal beagle named Rick in the jail, another inmate, and they fought the case and they won. And then what got us is that when they fired the CO, right? They fired him because he got into an altercation and he was just a reckless wreck all the time. He was in something all the time. So they finally let him go. And anyways, so he got let go like 2 weeks before his 20-year pension kicked in. So anyways, they told him, or the ACOA, it's the Alaska Correctional Officers Association, the union, they told him, go into the paper and tell your story. So he goes in there, and in the process of telling his story, he tells on a bunch of other COs that were backing him, saying that I thought I could have a knife. My commanding officer, I even borrowed a knife from him one day. So he's just telling on all these people that were trying to help him. And then he goes, and then they said, well, what happened? What happened in this? And he said, well, he goes, I came into work the day before, and he said, I got into it with an unruly inmate that happened to be the leader of a security threat group, right? Yep. And then he says, I went home that night, and I thought long and hard about retaliation before I decided to bring the knife. He said, if I didn't have that knife, I surely would have been killed. And then all of a sudden they were like, well, where's the knife? And then DLC does exactly what it does. Got their broom out and started sweeping everything under the rug, let everybody out. Everybody paid Mike Berg, paid him an undisclosed amount of money, all kinds of stuff, man. And then so when people like the CO yesterday that would say that to my dad's or my boss's dad, and say that about me. Come on, man.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I mean that's the whole reason I'm surprised you even have got to the place you are now, where you're at least a little accepting of some officers, I'm sure, and you kind of understand what was going on. Because after a while, after just constantly getting screwed over and getting screwed over in ways where it literally affects your life for decades,
Yeah.
that's a big thing, man. That's huge.
I tried to change my life a long time ago, but the hole that I had dug,
It was too deep.
they had a lot of, it was like they were standing on my shoulders. The same people that were supposed to try to, rehabilitate me, they were the ones that were holding me down. Ultimately, my wife, thank God that I met my wife, and my wife fought for me.
Right.
And she got me rights to go to, because they wouldn't let gang members or nobody they had. But I decided to change my life. I wanted to change my life. I met my wife. I wanted to change my life. And they wouldn't let me go to no programs. They wouldn't do that. I was just a piece of dirt shit to them, and that was it. And I would never change. So my wife had to basically fight them on a constitutional level, saying you're violating his constitutional rights to rehabilitation, rights to see his family, right to all these things, and ultimately, man, those programs changed my life. I ended up getting into a TLC program, which was a faith-based program, and mind you, I was in segregation when I hit my knees and I asked God to change my life.
Right.
So, and then all of a sudden I met my wife. My wife started speaking goodness into my life and started saying, "Man, you don't even know how powerful you really are. You think you are this, but you're so much more than this, and God has great plans for your life, and you're wasting it, and you're dragging people down that you claim to love." She told me one time, and this was a double-edged sword too, because I was the founder of one of the most violent prison gangs in the state of Alaska.
Right.
You talk to me nowadays, my heart and my mind ain't like that no more. But this is
Right.
the poor choices that I made, and it still goes on today. But my wife, when I first met my wife, she was like, "You love them guys?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I love them." She's like, "They're your boys? They're your family?" I said, "Yeah, they're my family." And she said, "Well, why do you preach a lifestyle to them that's going to get them killed or stuck in prison till they're your age?" She
Yep.
says, "Have you had a great life?" She said, "You claim to love them." She says, "Love I know doesn't put things they love in harm's way."
Yep.
And I laid back thinking about that for some time, man. And I just was like, real recognizes real. And that was real. Like, I'm claiming to love these guys, and I'm having them, destroy their life behind me and my pain.
Right.
Because all of it came from my pain and my need to be accepted. And I needed brothers because I needed a family, and I needed all these things. And I was ultimately just destroying lives with everything that I did. Everything. Destroyed my community, destroyed my friends' lives, people that I claim to love. A lot of them, some of them don't even get out of prison ever again because they acted on,
Orders.
the old gang
Yep.
um, code. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so I just, it really never started making a change. I stayed addicted to drugs because the only time that I could look myself in the mirror was when I was high, because when I killed my friend, or when I was in that car accident that killed my friend, I carried the weight of that. Like no best friend should ever have to be worried about their best friend being irresponsible and causing their life to be gone. So it hit me hard, man. And then when I did drugs, when somebody introduced me to drugs, and I started getting high deeply, like, with needles and things like that, I
Yep.
I got off on the cloud nine, man, and I sat there and I would do anything and everything to stay high so I didn't have to feel the pain and the pressure in my life. and it became unbearable, man. Like I was so unhappy, man. I was so unhappy, and I just had to walk around like I was this hard macho dude, and I was dead inside, man. And then one night in the back of my cell, like that weight was so much, man, and it was dark, so nobody could see me. You know what I mean? And I was in the back of the room, big buff gangster, just balling, dude, like now, you know. And
Sorry.
and I was like, God, please, man, please, I can't stand this shit no more. Please, man, I'll do whatever you want me to do. And he's sitting a savior, man. He's sitting my wife, dude. And my
And
wife
we
helped
wanna
me.
we wanna get into for everybody that's in here, we're probably going to have your wife on and then you guys together,
Yeah,
so that we can talk about kind of how that happened. Because I want to kind of get all of the story. I think that'll be good for a lot of people. I wanted to ask too, during those stints where you were out, like, did you ever have your homies out with you, and did it ever feel like it was different outside, or were you always alone every single time you did get out?
that was weird thing, man. It was because like everybody, everybody, like even the youngsters that came in and got in part of my gang, they come in and they'd see, you know, like I said, I don't know, man. I was able to sell my thing, man, and I was able, like, because I really loved my dudes, man. You know what I'm saying? I still
Right.
do,
Right.
but I changed my life. They didn't agree with me. They put a hit out on my head, things like that. You know, it was just crazy. There's a whole different, another side of the story, man. That after I decided to give my life to God, they turned on me, man, and that was the path I had to walk. And I thought that when I gave my life to God, it was going to change, and it got hard so much more. I was crying out because my life was almost already, you know. And then how do you think this feels? None of the police think that your change is real and the desires in your heart are real, but you already made the choice to pass the keys to your gang to somebody else and say I
Yep.
quit.
Yeah, and your
You
family's
know.
gone. Yeah.
So now I'm even more lost because now I'm stuck in this place where I was the most popular dude in the joint. Everybody loved me, and then I wanted to follow God, and then everybody didn't like me no more because you know following God in prison ain't the thing. So and when I heard God tell me you can't walk in the light and the dark at the same time, it won't work. You know,
You just
you
had to
can't say
pick
you
one
love
and make that
God
choice.
and then continue sinning and
Yep.
continue doing harming and doing bad, you know?
Yep.
So I went to my second guy I trusted with all my life, man, and I told him where I was feeling, and I said, I think I'm leading you wrong, man. I'm leading you guys wrong, man. I'm destroying your lives, and I'm supposed to be your leader, bro. And and it just did not compute. They thought I was an absolute sellout for wanting to change my life, and they all left. Except for a few of them, you know what I'm saying? A few of them understood, and a few of those guys are out here actually doing good today because they followed me my lead that way. And that's what I told them. I said, I don't understand how you would follow me down the toilet and do whatever I said that would destroy your life, but the moment I tell you to do something good
Yeah.
that would lead you out of the toilet and
Yep.
into a blessed full life, you turn on me. And that right there was like when I realized like there's a lot of lessons that I'm gonna learn um in every bad situation. Like and that was one. Like be be careful who you call your friends. Be careful who you call your friends and because you can have snakes all around you and not even know.
The same kind of goes for addiction and recovery and everything, because you'll be out there, you'll have friends that you use with, and it's your entire life. It consumes you, and some people are stuck in that hole and they don't even want it to change. And then their friend is like, okay, I'm finally done with this. I want it to be all over. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get out of it. And you try and get other people on that ride with you, and it doesn't compute. It's not what they want to experience. Some people like that hard life, and they're so comfortable in prison they don't know how to get out, and there are so many factors to it. It's not, I feel like it probably wasn't even that they didn't love you. They felt like you were betraying them, so they had to move on.
I wrote the rules. I'm the one who wrote the precepts to my gang,
Right.
and dropping out wasn't one of them. And there was a precept for that. And so they did nothing wrong. Believe that. They did nothing wrong. They were following their oath they took.
Did you have initiations, especially for like the young bucks whenever they were coming in to join?
Yeah, I mean, everybody got a year prospect time. They got to prove themselves. Yeah.
Was
I mean,
it?
I don't want to speak too much on their business. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I've come a long way from getting telling their business like that. You know what I mean? Like I used to speak real freely about it, and then I got, because it was part of my testimony. You know what I'm saying? So I used to speak real freely, and then it would kind of impinge on things that the public and other people outside the club ain't supposed to know. And they'd be like,
Right.
and so they were mad at me because they were mad at me. They were proud of me at first that I wanted to get my life together and all that stuff. But then when they started, I went in, I talked to some reporters and went in and was telling things that I thought were like my testimony. But it was kind of like I was telling
Their story.
darker secrets within that people ain't supposed to know, and they were getting pissed off at me for that.
Yeah.
So they believed that they were doing the right thing. I'm the one that preached that lifestyle and built that up for them. So they didn't know how to take it because they thought I was their brother and I was really betraying them. That like, you wrote the rules, bro, and now you're breaking them. What is that saying to everybody else? So like when you come in, there's always the youngster that comes in and he sees this group that's just badass. Everybody's scared of them and all this. So naturally they want to get in. So naturally, it's like everything else. You can't just get into it. You got to prove yourself. So they did anything and everything to prove themselves. And they all got their patches and things accordingly for the things that they did.
That was kind of why I asked that, because I know a lot of people that were in the gang life. I was around that a fair amount. And I know a lot of people that kind of did similar things where, the person they looked up to betrayed them or left or whatever. And I feel like that's a lot harder because a lot of these guys had never committed serious crimes, like violent crimes and stuff like that. And the first time they did was on orders from, this person that they look up to. And then all of a sudden this person wants to change it up. It's like, you got me into this life and then you want to switch up on me?
There's this song written by a Christian rapper named Seven. And he I think his name's Seven. Is it Seven?
I
Seven.
And
he's in this song's like They Lied to Us. That's the name of the song. They lied to us, something like that. And it's basically about the youngsters coming in, and he's saying like it's all like genocide on your own people, like they lied to the big homies, lied to us, and they painted this picture and glamorized this lifestyle that was just a bomb waiting to happen. It's going to destroy your life. And their love had ulterior motives in it and things like that. Like that song like resonates with me, man. So, so much because I feel responsible. Like nobody in the state of Alaska had tattoos like I did. We all started getting tattoos, but then I'm the first one, like second one in the state that had their head done. And I was the very first in the state that had their whole face blasted out. You know what I mean? And then eyeball. You ever seen the viral video of the guy that has the the tattoo on the
Eyeballs.
side of his face, like
Yep.
that Jason Barnum eyeball.
Yep.
Yeah, I just talked to him last night. He's out, and I know the Avenger, the Alaskan Avenger. I just talked to him. Lucky. I just talked to him the other day, and
Okay.
JD Delay. You know what I mean? That he's helping him out, things like that. So in the TikTok world, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So, there's a few of us out here trying to get our lives together, man. That had kind of like notable cases. You know what I'm saying? Like eyeball shot a cop, got shot by the cops, and
Yep.
the Avenger went in hitting pedophiles in the head with hammers, and
Yep.
you know what I mean. And so I did time with all of them. I was friends with all of them guys. So, and I still am.
That's the thing. You are building your family of people that wants to do better. Like
Yeah.
instead of going down that dark path continuously, you found your wife. You're finding that group that is trying to improve themselves, and that's the only way you can improve.
I don't want no more problems in my life, man. I want to serve God. I want to, I want to save as many people with my story as I can. I want some youngster like your stepson to understand, like, listen, bro, he's trying to help you
Right.
because this is how bad it could be. I want people to understand, like my whole life, all I wanted was to be loved, and it destroyed me. You know what I mean? And I had many choices in my life to be a man on my own. And so all the time that I did in prison was because of my poor choices, because
Yep.
because I was hurting inside. I was hurting. So I lashed out at others. And it caused a lot of people that didn't deserve it. They didn't deserve to have their stuff stolen. They didn't deserve to be robbed. They didn't
Yep.
deserve to have these things happen to them. And some guy that was hurting inside, and instead of just understanding that you're doing this to yourself, and the moment that you decide that enough is enough, you can come out of it. Drug addiction, anything. It's
Anything.
just gotta, you just gotta do the work, and it's not easy, and you gotta make them hard decisions, like I did with my friends. I had to, if my life was always gonna be fucked up if I didn't make that decision, and it was hard, and it was scary, and I faced a lot of pressure under it. I didn't know if I was gonna get stabbed any day, like all these things happened. But I stayed the course, and like I always tell people on my page, like life can change as long as you don't tap.
Right.
You know, there's help out there. Even with my addiction, I had to go get on subs. I had to get on
Right.
Suboxone,
Yeah.
and I take them every day, and I take them the way I'm supposed to, and I don't have drug cravings no more. I don't. In that department of my life, some people say it ain't recovery. You know what? I'm not out robbing and stealing and harming people no more.
Right.
I know that. And I'm also, and my brain's also coming back around, and my thing now. I've conquered a lot of things, and it was like putting my life back together, and it was things like that, right?
Right.
And a lot of that was the reason why I even used drugs, because I didn't understand life and pressure of life and all those things, and when I would do drugs, everything would be
Go away.
easy. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying?
Yep.
So now I've built up my life enough to where I'm getting to the point where my next big challenge and big thing that I want to try to conquer is trying to get off that. You know what I'm saying? And get my life all the way back 100% me. So, but until I'm ready, my life, I'm killing life today.
Right.
I bought my wife. My wife held me down for 9 years, man, banking on a dirt bag that's never made it on the street. And like I said, I'm real. Everything comes out of my mouth, man. I'm trying to tell the truth and be real these days. And I got to a point where I was able to let my wife quit work, She don't have to work no more. I pay all my bills. I
Okay.
bought my wife a home. I remodeled it. It's all on my TikTok. You can see it. I bought it. It's a trailer, but it's my home. I've been out since February 3rd or February 3rd or 2nd. And I make 68, 80 an hour. I worked my ass off. I got out immediately and got because I used to cut hair in jail and braid hair for my hustle. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I chased that. I got done with barber school. You know what I mean? I got into a premier shop up here, and then I told my testimony at church, and then I said, "Come to AK Fades if you want a haircut," you know. And then my boss came in, my boss now, and he came in, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm trying to buy this trailer, but I need to come up with some extra bread so I could get the down payment money." And he was like, "Well, I don't know if you're interested, but you can come help me side my house." So I started going up to his house after I would cut hair all day and go up there and help him around his house and stuff. And come to find out that he owned Frontline Construction, and he does all the Davis Bacon work, which is big money. You know what I'm saying? Commercial rates.
Yep.
So I asked my PO, and you know what I mean. I got a good PO, and he said, "Hell yeah, man." You know, because he's all for my PO, man. He's changed my perception of all of them. You know,
He wants things to get better.
But I actually got even a deeper story about why my perception of them started. You know, I had my wife was in the reentry. She's a criminal justice reform advocate and stuff. So she went and she spoke at this place, but she seen one of the DLC officials was there, and he was the special assistant to the DLC commissioner. His name was Phil Cole. Well, he sent me a Bible. She talked to him about me, like, "Hey, we're trying to get him into these programs and they won't let him go and it happened to be that Phil was a believer. So he sent me a Bible. That was the first Bible I ever had. And he sent me a Bible, and then I wrote him a story or a letter, and I said, I know you hear a lot about me on paper, but I said, I can tell you that 90% of that isn't true. You know what I mean? And if you could look me in the eyes and you're a good judge of character, then you know if I was lying to you or not."
Right.
So one day him and the higher ups come and see me, and they're like, "What's going on?" And I said, "Man, you won't let me go to these programs to change my life." I said, so basically what I told them is, don't sit back, whine, bitch, and complain about the stuff I'm doing in jail if you're not going to give me a chance to go to these programs so I can have an opportunity to change my life.
Right.
And he ended up, man, he made a way for me to get into the programs. I went into the TLC program, which is a faith-based program, and I started releasing my pressure. You know what I mean? With the counselors and with the Word of God and things like that. And as we carried on, man, he ended up coming and seeing me so much that he understood that I didn't, because I hadn't had my family in my life at all for 20 years. And one day he just comes in there, and he had a heart attack. So he had to take his retirement. He was 70 years old. So he came in, he started coming in after on his own time to come in. He's a CO, a DLC official, Yep. Somebody I would despise and hate. And this guy starts coming in, and we start building a relationship, man. And one day he just comes in and he says, "Carl," he says, "I know we got our Heavenly Father." He said, "But I know you ain't had a good run with earthly fathers." And he said, "I don't know." He goes, "I don't know where your thinking's at." And he says, "But I'll tell you, you take this old man," he said, "I'd like to adopt you." So he just ended up becoming my father figure, for the next 10 years of my life. And we couldn't figure out how to do the adoption paperwork stuff. So I just started calling him Pops. So I call him Pops, and he has passed away,
Sorry, bud.
So if you know a lot of if anybody watches my page or anything, there's one on there where I relapsed. I was at barber school and my wife called me and was like, "Hey, Pops fell. He had signed a no resuscitation order after his last heart thing.
Yep.
And he signed a no resuscitation when he fell and he hurt himself and he was bleeding inside, you know. He had ripped his something inside and he was like vile stuff was coming out, like he ripped his stomach open or something inside. So I called my parole officer and I was on ankle monitor and I was like, "Hey, Pops fell." And I said Phil Cole because he used to be their superior, you know. I was like, "Man," and they were like, go see him." So we raced out there and he was on the bed, man, and he was doing the whole thing like my friend was, you know, like that. And I was just laying on the side of the bed, one side. My wife was on the other side, and his service dog, was laying on his feet, you know, on his legs. And I was just like, "Pops, it's okay, man. Go, bro. Go." He was a real believer in God, man. I was like, "Pops, it's okay, man." And then he just started calming his breath down. And then for months, he had a stroke. So the last few months of his life, he had this like kind of goofy looking look on his face, like, you know, like he was trying to see out of his eye and he couldn't.
Hold it all right.
And he kind of was and he was kind of childish. Like after that had happened, he was kind of like more like childish, you know what I mean? And I can't describe it like that, but anyways, I started talking to him and his labor of breath started calming down and he slowly looked over and his eye was open and he looked at me and it was like all that there was just most clarity ever since his stroke. Like he didn't know if he understood you, but he just looked over at me, man. He was looking at me out of his one eye and he was there. I could tell all of him was there. And I said, "Thank you, Pops." I was like, "Man, just go. It's okay. I'm okay now, man." And then my wife said something and he turned over there slowly and he looked at her and she was like, "We love you," because he was really there for my wife, you know, because she was out here in this world alone. And when she got with me, everybody turned their back on her because they thought she got with a sociopath, you know, and they thought, "Oh, you're going to go out with that dude, a gangbanger," and all, you know, so they all turned their back on her. So she stayed true to me and she stayed out here 9 years fighting for me, man. But she didn't have fathers either. Her fathers raped her and did all these weirdo shit to her, so she didn't have that either. And Pops stood up. He walked my wife down the aisle for me in jail. You know what I'm saying? They let me when I was in that treatment program, they let me and my wife have a real wedding in the jail. And he walked my wife down the aisle then. And then when I got out, right before he died, he could barely even walk. Man, I got to get something blow my nose here in a minute. Sorry, guys. I've been crying and now I can't stop sniffling. But he just walked my wife down the aisle for me. When I got free, we renewed our vows, and yeah, he walked and he could barely walk, and he was just on his cane and he was trying, dude. But we said our piece, and then like not even a second later, man, like 2-3 breaths later, he died. And it was like he held on so he could see us, man. But I was able. That's what brings me peace, is that when I needed somebody the most in my life, he stepped up and he rode hard for me, man. And he got me into these programs and he approved it. He did all these things and he became really close to me. And then when he was in the most vulnerable stage of his life and he needed somebody there, I was able to be there on his deathbed with him, you know. But it caused me to relapse, man. It caused me to relapse and almost could have been the end of my life, because I ran into some friends and they had some Molly and like ecstasy or something, and I was like, "Oh, I'll take that, cheer up," you know. And then when I went into jail, I ended up they took me in, they came to my house and they said that I was out of area. and and so they took. I wasn't, but I didn't know that they were. They knew I was getting high. They knew I'd got high, so they were coming to take me back.
Right, right,
So anyway, but they lied to me and they made me think that it was because I was out of area on my ankle monitor, and I was like, I was not, you know. So they took me to jail and they gave me a UA in the jail, and it came back hot for fentanyl, and I never did fentanyl my whole life, and it could have killed me, is all I'm saying.
right, right.
So, and right there, I just decided right then, you know, I got back out, and then they put me in a transitional home. I couldn't go back home, so they put me in a transitional home, and I relapsed again, right? And I was sitting in church, and I mean, literally heard it, bro. Fake, as the preacher was talking, Josh. He's like, I heard fake, and then I heard it again. And I was tripping, right? And I was like, and then I heard, turn yourself in. And then I just started hearing that, and it got so overwhelming in my head that I couldn't hear even the preacher talking. And then basically what I heard my spirit say was, don't sit around these people that love you and make them think you're okay when you're not. Turn yourself in. So for the first time in my life, I did what he told me to do, man. I because that's what I promised a long time ago, you know? Right. And I did. I went right down to my parole office. I even made a TikTok video about it, even on a call from jail. I was lying. I was doing these things. I was falling into old behaviors and stuff. And I turned myself in. I was going to get it right. And I only had 2.5 months left on my sentence. So I went down to my parole office and I told him, look, I got high. I'm not going back over to that place. So send me home or send me to jail, you know? And I told my wife that I was going to lay in that room while I was in there. I was going to unwind every situation in my life. I was going to think it through. That I was going to look where I went left when I should have went right. I was going to untangle my life. And that's what I did. And it was also an answered prayer too, because that was Sunday, I heard that in church. And then my mom was going into heart surgery on Monday. And, you know, and me and my family had got back together. And I was a real mama's boy, man. And I went into jail Monday, but Sunday night we prayed because my mom, I went to jail Wednesday. My mom went in the hospital on Monday. So Sunday night I prayed. I prayed for my mom's life. Sunday night, she went in on Monday. And then Wednesday I went in and told my parole officer to take me to jail or let me go home. They took me to jail. And then Friday morning my wife came in. And just the way she looked when I came into the visit, I was like, my mom? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, she died? She was like, yeah. And I was like, but I'm just saying all of that right there was when I gave up every last bit of bull crap I was clinging on to. And I answered the Lord. I answered and I did what he said. And through obedience, man, I haven't had one desire to do drugs. Not in the least little bit, man.
It's good.
And my life just all of a sudden started like jumping mountains ahead. Like it's crazy. So
It's something that it took a little while for me to figure out too. And once I started actually getting through it, and you have to have that willingness to do more. And I think once you figure that out, I mean, everything gets better. It all changes because you actually start growing and being a better you. But we are out of time. If we go any longer, I'm not going to be able to put this on my phone, so we can't put it on YouTube. And I want to have all of these on. We'll end up having you back anyways. We'll get your wife on and then get you guys in. So we will kind of probably, after we have your wife on, we'll kind of pick up from here most likely and wherever she ends off, and then we'll get into you guys. But Thanks for being here, man. Thanks for telling your
Yeah, man.
story.
Yeah, thank you guys, man.